Alrighty, there are 10 weeks to go in the AFL season, and I thought it's finally time to do my mid-season ladder predictions. I know I've gotten this one out a little bit later, but hey, it's better late than never. And it's interesting to see where I think all these sides will finish in 10 weeks' time. Alrighty, let's start off with 18th spot. And it's an extremely obvious one for mine. It is obviously the West Coast Eagles. It has been a complete disaster season for them. Only with the one win. Honestly, I don't think they'll win another game all year. They've got like the longest streak of 40-plus point losses that I think we've seen in the AFL. They've lost every game by more than 40 since round 2. And they're just clearly the worst side in the competition. We've seen no improvement from them all year. If anything, they're getting worse. It's certainly a combination of poor list management and obviously injuries. That hasn't helped them either. But even then, I don't think it makes too much of a difference for them. I mean, their best players at the moment, or at least their star players, a lot of them are aging, which means that they could be stuck in this position for many years to come. They could see bottom 4 for 3 or 4 years at least. Now, 17th spot, clearly a lot better than the Eagles, but still in 17th, I've got North Melbourne. And it's an interesting one for North because I don't know if they're necessarily playing like a side that's deserving to be in the 17th position, but they haven't won a game since round 2, and it's round 14 now. They've done 10 straight losses in a row, or 11, and yeah, it's a frustrating one for North Melbourne because we can see that the signs are there. There are certainly a lot more signs that we have for the Eagles. They're just not getting those results together, which would certainly give them a lot more belief if they did. They certainly won't win enough games at the moment to escape the Hawks or even the Blues from the bottom 2 at the moment, but I still think they're seeing some improvement as of late, and they'll be building on an upset win. I think they'll finish the season on around 4 wins. They'll beat the Eagles, and they'll get that upset win that they've been craving. Now, this one's a bit of a difficult one. In 16th spot, I've gone with the Hawks, and you might be like, well, with the way they've been playing the last month of footy, they don't deserve to be in this position, and that's probably fair enough, but I just think they'll stay in this spot, especially after Carlton's last win. And even with myself having the Hawks in 16th, I still predict that they'll win 4 more games this year to go 8 wins all season. But still, though, with the way the competition's going, will only be enough to finish 16th. But they've definitely exceeded expectations this season. I thought they'd be clearly the worst side this season, finishing 18th. That isn't the case. They've got one of the best young crops of talent in the league who will dominate in the years to come. They've got Newcombe, Day, Moore, Mackenzie, Ward, Lewis, to name a few. They won't be rising up the ladder this year, but they could possibly be pushing close to the top 8 the year after. Now, one of the most disappointing sides this season, that is for sure, in 15th position, I've gone the Carlton Blues. They're very, very lucky they got that win against the Suns on the weekend. A very good one, to be fair. That escapes them from finishing 16th, because if they would have lost that game, they were going bottom 3 for mine. That'll give them a bit of confidence, I guess. That'll maybe clear a little bit of stress from the Blues at the moment, but still, I don't think they're back. I still think they're in a shambles of a position, and they have a lot of problems on and off the field. And this game, just like the Eagles game, could just be a one-off. We don't know. It's as big as a fall from grace I've seen from the club in quite a while. Many tipped them to finish top 6, top 4. I had them 5th. With the list that they have, 2 common medalists, a Brownlow medalist, and just a lot of stars from a lot of the lines of the ground. We really thought Carlton, this would be the year for them, but they just failure to score and attack and just not playing for each other, not playing for the coach. I don't know what position they're at the moment, but at the moment, the issues almost seem unfixable, and I've got them in 15th. Now, this side has certainly exceeded expectations, I think, in 14th position with 9 wins, the GWS Giants. The Giants have been going very, very nicely. Surprisingly, I would say impressive under Adam Kingsley. A lot of people, I think, were tipping the Giants to finish bottom 4. I think most were. I tipped them bottom 2, and I know a lot of others did. Yes, they have been a little bit average as of late in closing out games and getting those close wins, but as of late, and in pretty much the entire season, they normally are always in games. And, you know, as of late, players such as, you know, Kelly, Green, and Cornelia, they're back to their best. They looked as good as they've ever been against the Dockers on the weekend, with just a dominant 70-plus point win, and I think they can continue and build on something. They got some bit of hope now, the Giants, I feel like, which I didn't think they had much of, you know, leading into this season. Now, building up a spot with an extra win, 10 wins, I've got the Gold Coast Suns in 13th position. Unfortunately for mine, I really think that demolition against the Blues could really kill their confidence, because they were looking at an upwards trajectory. A lot of people thought that this was their time, and I really thought they were going to beat the Blues with the form that they were in, but I guess they just decided that it's just too inconsistent, and obviously can't seem to play the ground dimension of the G very well, because that was just very disappointing. And I hope it's not the case, but I could see them, you know, start dropping their heads and letting this season slip away. There's still certainly a chance at the finals this season. What are they, like 7 wins, 6 wins? So they're certainly in the hunt, but I just feel like that loss could derail their season. They're a good side still at home, and they've been in some good form, but they're still a very inconsistent side, and they still struggle to finish out seasons, I feel. And at their best, they do look like a top 8 side, but at their worst, they do look like this mediocre side that we saw at the start of the season, and the side that also lost by 60-plus points against the Carlton Blues. Now, up another spot in 12th, and speaking of disappointing sides compared to last season, we've got the Sydney Swans in 12th position with the 10 wins, and yeah, obviously it's been a real big disappointment this year for the Swans. They're currently in the bottom 4 at the moment. I'm not sure what the issue is, I guess. A grand final hangover. Teams that get smashed in grand finals consistently seem to just slump the year after. I guess injuries and form slump with a lot of their players obviously contributed to that drop-off. But even then, you know, they were Southern made the grand final last year. And unlike Geelong, they don't have any. They didn't show any signs of, you know, aging or anything like that. I think they still will find some wins at the back end of the season. I don't think they're going to completely let the season slip away. So that's why I think they'll rise a few more spots. They're too good of a side from what we saw last year to sustain all this terrible form all year. But, you know, it ultimately isn't enough. They're not making finals this season. I feel like this could be a bit of a transition year or something for the Swans. They dip, go back to the finals next season. But yeah, 12th among the Swans are not making it this year. In 11th spot with 11 wins and a draw, that is the Richmond Tigers. The Tigers currently are starting to find some serious form, especially with that win against the Saints. That's 3 in a row now, and I did say it, if they won that game, finals is back on. They looked all but out after that loss against the Suns, but ever since then, they found some serious form. And if they would have won a couple of those close games that they just seem to can't win, they could be in the 8 right now. Who knows? Key players currently at the moment are in some awesome form. Obviously, you know, Tim Taranto, but even Dustin Martin. Trent Cotchin had a great game on the weekend. They look very hungry to make the finals now, and we know that they've got it in them, the Tigers. But I still think with the Tigers, that start of the season is going to be... I think it's just going to be too much for them. I just don't think they'll be able to maintain this really good form all throughout the season and make a late run. They've got a relatively tough draw. I think they could maybe win a few of the games that they're not expected to win. At the end of the day, though, I think Richmond, they'll still be a very competitive side. They'll just fall short of the season and finish 11th. Now coming in 10th position, missing out on finals with just the wins. We've gotten the Dockers finishing with 12 wins and 11 losses. Not really sure what to make of the Dockers this season. I think for sure, you know, especially with their expectations, especially with their fans, they've been seriously disappointing. They've been seriously disappointing to start the season. It's weird for them because at times this season they've actually been capable of being or looking like a top 4 side with those wins against the D's and the Cats and the Swans even, but at the same time, they look sometimes like a bottom 4 side, obviously with a really, really disappointing start to the year, and their last 2 games, you know, they've really bad loss against the Tigers, but probably their worst loss all season was against the Giants, by 70 points. The Giants were a side, you know, tipped not to do anything this season. How can you be, you know, putting up shocking efforts like that? But I mean, that loss pretty much highlights their lack of desire and their lack of intent. They just didn't want to win. They just didn't care out there. They lost in every stat imaginable. And that game right there just shows me they're not making the finals this season. They're not hungry enough to make the 8. They won't make the 8 this year. Now this side, 9th position, finally missing out on finals. I think the Cats will be missing out on finals, finishing 9th. I know normally they don't start off seasons typically very well, but we're into round 14 and we're not really seeing too much from the Cats. If anything, we feel like they might drop even more. Obviously not the side that they were last year. Other sides simply just catching up to them. And it needs to be said, after that loss against Port Adelaide, a lot of defensive lapses really questions, you know, whether the Cats are really up for it anymore at the moment. They've dropped off. The midfield obviously hasn't been at their best with a lot of injuries, but they've now lost danger for another month. I know with the Cats, they're always going to be in the hunt. They're always in it amongst it. They're a great side. They won the flag last year. And 6 of the next 10 games are at GMHBA. So, you know, I think they're all certainly winnable. Certainly be in the hunt, but I just think the season right now for the Cats won't go their way. They might just scrape in, but I think they're going to just fall out and finish 9th. I'm not sure if I've already mentioned this, but this ladder was based on my predictions for the final 10 games on Squiggle. And this was just a coincidence, but all of the sides from 8th to 5th all snuck in with just 13 wins, which shows how competitive this top 8 race is going to be this season. We'll start off with 8th position, and this side with 13 wins, but with the lowest of the percentages of all the sides in the 5th to 8th position. We've got the Western Bulldogs. I don't know, is it a little bit too low for them? I'm not sure. They're certainly a side I genuinely reckon that are capable of making 4 at their best, the top 4 with their quality and talent. I think so far this year the Dogs, they can either be pretty good, but sometimes they can be really poor. Bit too inconsistent like with their start to the year. I guess at times this year you don't really know exactly what to expect from the Dogs. They started the season so poorly. You know, should have beaten the Suns, I imagine, leading into that game. Certainly think they should have beaten the Cats, and average-ish in a way against Power. They'll be good enough to make the 8, I think, the Bulldogs, that's for sure, but they might possibly drop 1 or 2 critical games to have them drop. But they're still too good, I think, this year to miss out, and I think they'll certainly be in finals contention. Now, I think all Bombers fans are waiting for where their side are going to finish this season in my predictions. I've got them finishing 7th spot. A massive tick, a massive big tick from Brad Scott this year in the Bombers, with them doing enough, I think, to sneak into the 8. And even if they don't make it, I still think it's been a big tick for them. Key plays have been, you know, massive for them this season. You know, Kyle Lang put up forward. How many goals he kicked? Like, 30 plus. Like, he's been awesome up forward for them. Nick Martin, one of the best seasons we've seen so far from a winger. He's certainly leveled up his game. I think right now for the Bombers, they've still got a lot of upside ahead of them. This isn't their year, obviously, but I think they're going to make the finals, especially with their easy finish. They've got a really favourable run home, which they should win most of their games. Comparing them to the top sides, they're certainly not good enough, as you can tell, but I think they'll be good enough. Now, what I've predicted here, actually, is that I think they'll upset the Pies final round to just sneak into the 8 and finish 7th spot. Now, next up in 6th position, I've gotten my Saints, another side that I think will finish on 13 wins. The Saints will just sneak in and be back in finals again for 2023. It's a tough one to call though at the moment because I'm not quite sold on the Saints as much as I was to start off the season, and I'm just hoping, I'm praying that we don't see what we saw last year and that we finally make finals. I just want to go to a St Kilda final. We know that their best is good enough to play finals footy with the way Ross Lyon can coach and, with how strong for the most part our defence has been. But definitely, as of late, there have been a lot of question marks on the Saints' legitimacy because we've had a bit of patchy form. I mean, our record, I think, is loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So it hasn't been amazing. Teams are certainly starting to do their homework on the Saints, and I just think that we're not as strong of a side as what we were when we started. I think we certainly need to beat Brisbane next week. Otherwise, we're very vulnerable. We're extremely vulnerable. Our fixture still, we have a few easy games to come. We still have Hawthorn to come, North to come, West Coast to come, and Carlton to come. Let's just say we beat Brisbane and those 4 sides. That's 13 wins. That'll be enough to make the finals. Obviously, we did lose to the Hawks earlier this season, so that's not saying anything. Now, this side, also with 13 wins, pretty high rise from where they finished last year. We've gotten the Adelaide Crows. I went through this on Squiggle. The first time I did this, they didn't make the 8. Now they're 5th, and it's just on percentage pretty much. The Crows are a bit of a weird one this season. They're certainly building onto something. This year isn't going to be the year for them, I don't think, but they've proven so far that they are arguably the scariest team in the competition when they play their games at home. And then that game, obviously, against West Coast, whilst it was against West Coast, it was an absolute bloodbath. All their forwards were contributing. Rankin has been an absolute, star. They've just, made things work this season, the Crows, particularly at home. Great pickups, Jordan Dawson, Isaac Rankin. But yeah, obviously, the question mark for the Crows really has been all season is the way they play away. When they do play away, for the most part, they go into their shells and they seem to play like a bottom 6 side, which is so strange with how good they play at home. They do have a tough away fixture to come, but they've also still got a lot of winnable games at home, and I think they'll have a big win over West Coast away to make it enough for them to make the 8. Alrighty, we'll head now into the top 8, and there's clearly a separation between the top 4 and the sides from 5th to 8th position. I think at the moment it's almost confirmed, I'd say, the top 4, with maybe this spot, the one where I think the Lions will finish, being the only vulnerable one where they could drop. But I think the Lions should be good enough to finish at least in the top 4 and finish 4th position with 15 wins. There's certainly a quality side on the plate at Gabba. They're strong enough. They're flat track bullies just like the Crows, and, well, yeah, they look like a top 2 side for sure when they play there. However, just like the Crows, they're a patchy side away, and that MCG hoodoo just continues to haunt them. They've won 1 game from the past, I think 13 or 14 at the MCG, and a stat like that is just very worrying for their, strives to win a flag this season. I just don't think it's going to happen, which just makes me believe that even if they do finish in the top 4, they're not going to be a threat, honestly, for the flag, because too many big name players go missing at the G whenever they play there. They've got to somehow find a way to finish top 2 to get that home final for me to really give them a shot. But I still think the Lions, they can be a really good side, but they can also be a bit disappointing, especially away from home. Now, in 3rd position, quite a bit better at the moment, I reckon, than the Lions. We've got Melbourne, and at the moment, they're starting to click into gear very nicely, especially with that statement win over the Pies on the King's birthday clash. They seem to be timing their run a lot better than they were, especially 2022. Unlike previous seasons where they start red hot, they kind of fade a little bit. They've been in patchy form a little bit, but they've started to gain a bit more form at the moment, and a lot of their star players are starting to play really well and improving. For example, Viney, Petrarca, and Oliver will be back soon. They got one of the best well-balanced lists in the competition, the Ds, and they're finally adding another string to the bow, which I feel like was a bit of a weakness for them, their attack. They're one of the best attacks in the competition. They've got great scoring capabilities, and at the moment for mine, the Ds, if they continue the way that they're going, they're going to be certainly a tough team to beat, and a team certainly challenging for the flag. Now, this side in 2nd has just been incredible. I can't believe how good they've been so far this season and how much they have shocked a lot of the competition. We've got Port Adelaide finishing 2nd, and I think they'll continue to ride this wave of impressive victories, and it'll be enough for them to make the top 2. I think if I'm not mistaken, they might be the highest scoring side so far this season as well. A lot of their players are just hitting their straps and playing some really good footy. Sam Pepper, Connor Hosey, Finn Lacing up forward, and obviously Zachy Butters. He's currently in Brownlow form. They're obviously going to be due a loss, and they might hit a bit of a form slump at times, but at the moment they're flying, and regardless if they hit that form slump or not, I think top 4 is a bit of a lock for mine, and I think they'll be good enough to make top 2 because they're just exceeding everyone's expectations. Now in first position, probably not much of a surprise. We've gone the Pies. I think they will finish first spot with the way they've started the season. Not much more needs to be said about the way I can describe the Pies. Playing, in my opinion, the most dominant and complete brand of footy in the competition. They're just doing it right week by week. I know they did lose to the D's in their last game that they played. They finally got a loss, but even then, they almost won the game, lost by 5 with how good the D's were playing and how poorly they were playing. That was, in my opinion, the worst game of footy the Pies have played all season by quite a bit. But aside from that, so many of their players at the moment, the Pies are in some extremely good form. Nick Dacos could win the Brownlow. And it's not just that. They don't have necessarily the most amount of stars in the comp for their side. They've just got so many players in their team that are just doing their role and just playing as a side. Giving the 1-2s, looking for the better option. They're just doing it just superbly at the moment in Collingwood. I don't think they're going to drop off. I think they're going to continue playing their style of footy onto finals. And as an MCG-based side, that they are really right now in the prime position to win the flag, and I think, at the moment, the flag favourites to go all the way. Well, that wraps up my mid-season ladder predictions from, round 14. So not technically mid-season, but I think this is the way I see the ladder going. I probably will be wrong, but let me know down below what you think will happen with the top 8 especially. It's a very difficult race to make it into. Now, I need to grab the scarf quickly. What do you guys think will happen with the Saints? Will we make the finals? Will we find a slump off? Is 6 too high? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, leave a like. A lot of content coming your way. Some exciting new content in the next few weeks that I'm excited to get out to you guys. But until then though, hit that like button, subscribe, leave your ladder predictions down below, and we'll see you very soon in the next video.